there is a lot of good stuff happening right now. We're seeing some real fight from Democratic lawmakers. That's good. We're seeing institutions stand up to Donald Trump. That's definitely good. We're seeing courts stop him in his tracks. That's great. And this weekend, we saw more massive protests all across the country. But I actually wanted to start today by talking about fear, because fear is clearly a major driver of Trump's brand of politics, always has been. And how we all respond to that fear in this moment is going to determine a whole lot about the future of this country. Congressman Jamie Raskin summed it up pretty well in the New York Times this week. He said, there's a regime of fear that's been brought down on society. People need to see leaders and organizers standing up and speaking with authority against what's happening. Congressman Jamie Raskin summed it up very well there. He's here today. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk to him in just a moment. But I also want to talk about a few other things, because this week we also saw at least one Republican acknowledge that fear too. I mean, during an event in Alaska this week, Senator Lisa Murkowski was asked what she would say to people who are afraid right now. And she was way more candid than I at least expected her to be.
What do you have to say to people who are afraid, or who represent people who are afraid? We are all afraid. Okay? It's quite a statement. But we are, we're in a time and a place where I don't know, I certainly have not been here before. And I'll tell you, I'm oftentimes very anxious myself about using my voice. Because retaliation is real. And that's not right.
It's definitely not right. And retaliation is real. We've seen it. Those fears are real. We all know that Trump is vindictive, and he's betting he can gain a lot of leverage by creating even more fear. But at the same time, we've already seen that giving in to his demands gets you absolutely nowhere. I mean, when law firms cave, the demands don't stop. The firms that struck deals with Trump are now learning that the White House will effectively be choosing their pro bono clients for them. And when universities cave, the demands don't stop either. Columbia's deal with Trump might now include a court decree giving the White House control over the university's management. And when media outlets cave, the demands definitely don't stop. I mean, Paramount entered into settlement talks with Trump over a frivolous lawsuit, and Trump still pushed the FCC to revoke CBS's broadcast license. Point is this. Capitulating to Trump won't save you. You'll just be targeted again and again. Because when you give in to Trump's demands, you're just sending the message his threats and tactics work. You're not putting the episode behind you. You're just inviting more demands. That's how mob bosses work. And remember, fear is what Donald Trump sees as his most effective tool. I mean, in some ways, it's his only tool. Fear of retribution and fear of him weaponizing the powers of his office is basically what he relies on. And he's obviously relying on it to use that office in ways we've never seen before. I mean, he's trying to use the IRS, of all places, to target the nonprofit status of universities, which is the goal of making all nonprofit groups afraid of continuing the work that they are doing. He's trying to use immigration powers to make any non-citizen fear that he could change their legal status and force them out of the country at a moment's notice. Trump is using his office to instill fear in every single way he can. And he's doing it in a way that he thinks, at least, is politically smart. He thinks it is. He's trying to lure his political opponents into making this about just defending elite institutions like Harvard or big city law firms nobody's ever heard of. He's spreading lies about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, daring people to defend him personally rather than defending the rights he's been denied. And on the issue of Garcia specifically, some Democrats have said it's a distraction from the economic calamity he's caused. Some have said Kilmar Abrego Garcia is an imperfect hero for this issue. Maybe he is, saying it's playing on Trump's turf on immigration. And Republicans really do think this is their turf. They really do. I mean, just listen to how Stephen Miller described this issue.
President Trump, his policy is foreign terrorists that are here illegally get expelled from the country, which, by the way, is a 90-10 issue.
Sounds scary. I mean, 90-10? First of all, Stephen Miller needs a math class. I think we've all learned. But That's a big bluff from a little man and his sidekick. It's true that when pollsters are asked broad questions, when they ask broad questions to people out there about immigration and deportation broadly, Trump's policies do well. But when those questions get more specific, and that's important, it's a totally different story. A YouGov poll this morning found that 6 in 10 respondents said they opposed deporting immigrants without criminal convictions to El Salvador to be imprisoned, without letting them challenge their deportation in court. 61%, guys. That's a pretty clear majority, especially compared to the 26% of respondents who said they supported Trump's actions. It's not exactly 90-10 in Stephen Miller's favor on that one, is it? And we're seeing that on the ground in states across the country, too, even some pretty red states. Just listen to the earful that Republican Senator Chuck Grassley got from an older, mostly white crowd in Iowa this week.
You gonna bring that guy back from El Salvador? Why not?
Well, because that's not a power of Congress.
Supreme Court said to bring him back.
Judges are.
Yeah,
The
but
president hasn't.
what can they do?
He's defying the
You're on the Judiciary Committee.
Trump don't care.
If I get an order to pay a ticket for $1,200 and I just say no, does that stand up? Because he's got an order from the Supreme Court and he's just said no.
Yeah. He just said, screw it.
The president of that country is not subject to our U.S. Supreme Court.
If Trump wanted to bring him back, bring him back. I'm pissed.
Not sure that was what Senator Grassley was expecting from that town hall meeting in central Iowa. I mean, I guess people in central Iowa are a part of that 10% Stephen Miller was talking about. I mean, who knows? And I guess a Reagan-appointed federal judge is too in his calculation. In that federal judge's ruling upholding court decisions requiring the government to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return, Judge James Harvey Wilkinson III did not mince words exactly. He wrote, quote, "It is difficult in some cases to get to the very heart of the matter, but in this case, it's not hard at all. The government is asserting a right to stash away residents of this country in foreign prisons without the semblance of due process that is the foundation of our constitutional order. The government is asserting a right to stash away residents of this country in foreign prisons." I mean, that is a pretty clear distillation of the issue here. Likewise, the Supreme Court dealt Trump another big setback just this weekend. In an order that they issued at 1 a.m. Saturday morning, making some of the judges cranky, the court temporarily blocked the administration from deporting another group of detainees to El Salvador under the Alien Enemies Act. That was a 7-2 decision by Donald Trump's ultra-conservative court, 7-2. So the courts seem to be standing up to him. Some Republicans are standing up to him. And the public is not exactly on his side either. And what's now becoming clear is there are actually rewards for standing up. It's morally right, but there are rewards too. I mean, after Harvard said it would stand up to Trump's demands, it saw an outpouring of support and an immediate surge in donations. The pushback had enough of an effect on the Trump administration that they came up with a tortured process explanation, as the only way I can describe it, of how this all happened, with White House officials claiming the original demands were sent by mistake. Okay. So their decision to fight back not only shined a bright spotlight on Donald Trump's power grab, it also made his administration look kind of silly in the process. And any attention like that on any of the crazy stuff they're trying is a good thing right now. When Senator Cory Booker spoke for 25 hours on the Senate floor, it brought attention and news coverage. It also made him a hero to Democrats because he wasn't consumed by fear. He just kind of let it rip for 25 hours. When Senator Bernie Sanders and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez hit the road, they drew tens of thousands of people, if not more, at the rallies, not just in blue bastions like LA, but in places like Tampa, Idaho, and Missoula, Montana. Even as staunch progressives, which they proudly are, they're appealing to people across the ideological spectrum because they don't fear fighting back. More recently, Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland traveled to El Salvador this week and pressured the government there to give him a meeting with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Not only did Van Hollen clearly take a stand, in the process he also proved and showed people that Abrego Garcia was alive and forced the Salvadoran government to play a bit of defense. And since then, Van Hollen has commanded a ton of attention. I mean, this morning he did a round of 5 Sunday shows talking about his trip. So aside from the obvious moral reasons behind all of this pushback, and there are plenty of those, there's also a big political opportunity for anyone who's willing to take a stand. And look, on their own, any of these things might not seem like a huge deal. But taken together, all of this pushback is starting to matter. Yesterday, tens of thousands more people gathered across the country for another day of nationwide protests. They were called No Kings protests, a follow-up to the hands-off protests that drew millions into the streets just 2 weeks ago. But what will any of it translate to? Who knows? But standing up for what's right, trying some things, applying some pressure, getting some media attention is far more effective than being fearful and timid. Because being fearful and timid has never worked against this guy, and it sure isn't working now.